From Beijing today comes a story that blends wartime memory, shifting alliances, and high-stakes geopolitics. On September 3rd, 2025, Russian President Vladimir Putin sat face-to-face with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. Their meeting took place after both men attended China's large-scale military parade commemorating the 85th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. This encounter was far from routine. It carried layers of symbolism and practical consequences that stretch from the battlefields of Ukraine to the tense borders of the Korean peninsula. Putin began his remarks by honoring North Korea's role in supporting Russia. He praised what he called the courage and heroism of North Korean soldiers. He went further, declaring that Russia would never forget the sacrifices made by your armed forces and the families of your servicemen. Those words were not casually chosen. They were intended both for Kim Jong Un in the room and for a wider audience watching around the world. In another moment, Putin asked Kim to convey my warmest words of gratitude to all the people of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. This was not simply diplomatic etiquette. It was a signal that Russia is actively repositioning North Korea as a valued partner at a time when Moscow is deeply isolated by Western sanctions. The most striking comment came when Putin referred to the liberation of the Kursk region. He said North Korean special forces had taken part in that campaign in full accordance with our new treaty. That treaty, signed in 2024, is a comprehensive strategic partnership linking Moscow and Pyongyang in military, political, and economic terms. For analysts, this was more than a passing remark. It was an extraordinary admission. North Korean troops fighting alongside Russians on Russian soil. The Kursk region is a sensitive front in the ongoing war with Ukraine. By tying North Korean involvement to the liberation of that territory, Putin made clear that this partnership has already moved from paper into battlefield reality. He then defined the relationship in unmistakable terms. Recently, relations between our countries have taken on a special, trusting and friendly character, an allied character. The word allied resonates heavily in the language of international politics. It moves Russia and North Korea from the realm of ad hoc cooperation into something resembling a formal bloc. It is language meant to be heard in Washington, in Brussels, in Seoul, and in Tokyo. Putin also used the occasion to praise China. Speaking of the parade marking Japan's defeat, he said the events were conducted brilliantly at a high level and that they mattered because our countries took part in the common fight against Nazism, fascism, and militarism. By placing Russia, North Korea, and China into a shared historical frame, Putin was attempting to weave a narrative of continuity. Three nations bound by sacrifice in the past and bound again today in resisting what they describe as Western militarism. This meeting happened in Beijing under the watchful presence of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The parade itself was a display of military precision. Rows of Chinese troops marching through Tiananmen Square, modern weaponry rolling past, and foreign leaders observing from high-profile platforms. Against this backdrop, Putin and Kim's handshake was more than a courtesy. It was a carefully staged signal of solidarity, broadcast for the world to see. The timing is no coincidence. Russia remains locked in its grinding war with Ukraine. Western sanctions continue to cut Moscow off from traditional suppliers of goods and technologies. Its military, facing mounting casualties and equipment shortages, has turned to unconventional partners. North Korea, long isolated, offers both manpower and ammunition. For Pyongyang, the benefits are clear: access to Russian energy, food, and possibly advanced missile and nuclear technologies. Both nations share something else: deep hostility toward the United States and its allies. For North Korea, this alliance offers a chance to break free from decades of isolation. For Russia, it provides desperately needed support in its largest war since 1945. By invoking Kursk, Putin tapped into one of Russia's most sacred wartime symbols. The Battle of Kursk in 1943 was a decisive Soviet victory over Nazi Germany, remembered as the largest tank battle in history. Today, the Kursk region has once again become a front line, this time against Ukraine. By crediting North Korean forces with helping in its liberation, Putin tied today's conflict directly to Soviet victory narratives. The implication: Russia is fighting another great patriotic war, and North Korea is part of that struggle. For China, the optics were deliberate. Hosting both leaders in Beijing allows Xi Jinping to position himself as the center of gravity in this emerging axis. China does not openly endorse Russia's war in Ukraine, nor does it openly arm North Korea. But by providing the stage, China signals that it is willing to act as the hub for alternative power alliances that stand outside Western frameworks like NATO or the US-led Indo-Pacific strategy. International reaction has been swift. In Washington, officials see this as evidence that Russia is deepening military reliance on one of the world's most sanctioned regimes. For Seoul and Tokyo, it is cause for alarm. South Korea has already expressed concern that North Korea's battlefield cooperation in Ukraine could strengthen Pyongyang's military experience and confidence. Japan, facing its own security challenges, sees this as another step toward an unpredictable, more militarized Asia. The implications stretch further. If Russia and North Korea openly define themselves as allies, what comes next? Some analysts warn this could involve joint military drills, larger arms transfers, or even the permanent stationing of forces. Others note that Pyongyang's willingness to send troops abroad reflects its growing confidence that China and Russia will shield it from further international isolation. What is certain is that both leaders want to project defiance. Kim Jong Un, by appearing in Beijing beside Putin, demonstrates that he is no longer a pariah consigned to secrecy. Putin, by embracing Kim so openly, shows the world that sanctions have not left him without partners. Tonight's images capture that defiance, handshakes, smiles, and carefully worded tributes. But beneath the optics lies a stark reality. Russia, North Korea, and China are binding themselves closer together at a moment when global fault lines are sharpening. For Russia, the gamble is that this alliance can help sustain its war effort. For North Korea, it is the chance to prove that its soldiers' sacrifices, whether in 1943 or 2025, are recognized on the global stage. For China, it is the opportunity to remind the world that Beijing is once again the place where history is staged and alliances are displayed. In conclusion, the meeting in Beijing was not just about memories of the past, but about the construction of a new order in the present. As Putin told Kim, "We will never forget the sacrifices of your armed forces." That phrase now carries two meanings, one rooted in the blood of history and one shaping the battlefields of today.
Генерал-лейтенант завезен в переговоры. Полководцы тоже здесь. Принимаете участие в этом торжественном. Хочу отметить, что ваши воины сражались мужественно и героически.
나는 특히 이 자리에서 언급하자고 하는 것은 조선 전사들이 영광성 있게 아주 용감하게 싸웠다는 것을 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
Хочу отметить, что мы никогда не забудем и тех жертв, которые принесли ваши вооруженные силы и семьи ваших воинов.
우리는 하고 싶습니다.
Прошу передать самые теплые слова благодарности всему народу, корейским народу. По вашей инициативе, как хорошо известно, ваши спецподразделения приняли участие в освобождении Курской области.
국무병장 동지 발기에 따라 조선 군인들이 쿠스크주 해방전에 참전했습니다.
В полном соответствии с нашим новым договором.
이것은 우리 크게 생각합니다.
За последнее время отношения между нашими странами приняли особый и дружеский союзничество. Хотел бы отметить, что все эти мероприятия прошли блестяще, на высоком уровне.
조직이 조직한 모든 기념 행사들이 아주 훌륭하게 높은 수준에서 진행했습니다.
Так или иначе, напрямую касается нашей страны.
오늘 우리가 기념하게 되는 날짜가 우리 두 나라와 상관이 있는 기념일입니다.
Потому что наши страны принимали участие в общей борьбе с нацизмом, фашизмом и милитаризмом.